You're watching The Whole Living Show on Trajectory TV.
5 years ago, the Power of We Symposium was created to provide a platform for kids from all sectors where they could have a safe and comfortable environment in which to share both their joys and concerns. The Power of We Symposium is proud to have served over 250 kids throughout Romania when we took our mission global back in May of 2023. Now, 2 teams of amazing volunteers from both the U.S. and Romania embarked on an 8-day Legacy of Hope tour, bringing encouragement and hope to not only the kids of Romania, but also the adults who support them, and also to over 100 kids here in the U.S. who contributed handwritten letters of hope to our Romania mission of 2023. Now, this year, we are proud to provide this opportunity yet again in October, and we are super excited to up our game. New venue, 750 kids this time, and we want to see you there. We're looking forward to meeting you in person at this year's event, which promises, as always, incredible speakers, amazing content, and of course, some of the greatest kids on the planet. So, mark your calendars for October 24th, and we'll see you here in Chicagoland for the Power of We Symposium 2024. This year's theme is Always Together, Never Alone. Tickets are available now on Eventbrite or at powerofwesymposium.com.
Operate out of your dreams and your vision and not other people's expectation. Having breast cancer wasn't my choice, but the decision to live healthy so that I could stand before you here today, that's choice. You can choose this very moment to change your life from every perspective.
Tracy Randolph was our speaker. She came back because so many people liked her first presentation. I was one of those people that joined her fitness group, and it made me a better leader.
I grew up in a community, but they had limiting beliefs on what a little black girl could do. Everything that you do in this life is a choice. I choose to live healthy. I choose to change my mindset. I choose to be everything that I dreamed of because I choose faith and I choose me. Live healthy, be everything that you can be today. Choose yourself.
Hello, everyone. As always, I am jamming in the back to that show opener because I love the music. It's so happy and it's so fun. So I'm always in the back like boom, bow, bow. Okay, I can't sing, but I'm enjoying it anyway. But we have a great show for you this evening. I don't even have anything to talk about in the beginning because I don't want to take up too much time. My guest that is waiting backstage, she is absolutely amazing, just a light, and we want to get into the conversation. So let me introduce her, and I want, after I introduce her, for everyone to give her a virtual, really big round of applause before we bring her in. Her name is Martha Glory and Kartaoui. And if I'm pronouncing your last name, Martha, wrong, you just correct me when you come on stage. She is a resilient and courageous warrior who has transformed her life from being a cult survivor to becoming an influential voice and leader in the wellness industry. As the owner of PIC Wellness LLC, she is dedicated to helping others achieve their best overall holistic health, mind, body, and spirit. So you already know when we spoke, we were just aligned because that's what this show is about. It's about focusing on holistic wellness, mind, body, and spirit. Martha is also an Amazon best-selling international author, a dynamic speaker, and I have her book right here, so I got to show it off, you guys. She's a dynamic speaker, a life visionary, and a skilled healing workshop facilitator. Her unique blend of professional training, personal experience, and spiritual wisdom enables her to walk alongside survivors and support profound warrior transformations. And we're going to talk about that, how to transform your life. Her own healing journey and insights inspire, making her a beacon of hope and inspiration. Martha is dedicated to assisting individuals seeking to reclaim their lives in order to thrive in their own journey towards self-discovery and divine fulfillment. I absolutely love her bio, and it just speaks really a lot to who she really is. And you'll see what I mean when we bring her in. But let's give her a virtual round of applause. Woo! Everybody, welcome, Martha.
Hello, Tracy. Hi. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I feel the energy. I feel the applause. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yes, you are absolutely welcome. I'm so blessed to have you here, for sure. I was blessed by our initial conversation. So you guys, for those who don't know, we're both in the same state. Yes, we are.
North Carolina.
My new sister and neighbor here, and we're gonna find time at some point to get together. Yes, we absolutely do. We absolutely do. And I know I already know just from, the bubbly, beautiful personality that you have, that we're just going to have a good time when we meet.
Absolutely. I can't wait to give you a big old hug.
Yes, me too. Me too. So everyone out there, Martha is everything that, we read in her bio and so much more. So I want to ask you to start off just by telling a little bit more about yourself before we get into the story, because you have just an amazing story, and just your own transformation speaks volumes. But tell everybody a little bit about maybe something that wasn't in your bio that you want to share.
That I'm a work in progress, right? And this is a journey, not a destination. And I've been at this for almost 20 years. I've been freed from the captivity of the cult, but it's only been probably the last 7 years, I would say, that I've really found myself. And that's the journey that this is, the uncovering, the re-identifying, all of those things. It took a long time. Mm-hmm. Your journey doesn't have to take that long, but I had to find my own tools. I had to find, like this type of trauma and this type of abuse. It's not fixed by a pill. It's not fixed by talk therapy. At least it wasn't for me. And so I had to navigate my own way, and I had to find my own way. So it's only been like the last 7 years where I'm finally like, no, this is who God created me to be. And I love who looks back at me in the mirror. I love who I get to see when I'm doing a show like this. And I'm like, hey, I know her. That's Martha Kartaoui.
Kartaoui. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for saying your last name too.
Nobody ever gets it right. I don't take it personally at all.
I said Kartaoui, but I love it. Okay, Kartaoui. Well, I have to show this. I have to show your book. And the reason why I wanted to show it right now is because you said something. You said 7 years. It took you 7 years to really come to this person where you're like, you know what? I love who I'm looking at in the mirror. And this book is coming off of that, right? That 7-year journey that you've taken. And how significant is that to think about the number 7, right? The number 7, right?
Yeah.
And be able to write this book and have some real transformation after a 7-year journey. So talk a little bit about what it took for you to transform yourself within that 7-year time period.
So it's been the last 7 years where I finally feel like I know myself, but it was 13 years before that of the struggle bus, of just trying to exist, of just trying to recreate a life outside of the cult, of just trying to just do life, right? I got married and the children, and, you know, had a really good job and worked really hard and climbed the corporate ladder and all the things, but I was empty. And my past was chasing me and chasing me. And then my physical body starts breaking down. And then my mental, emotional body starts breaking down. And finally, all the things happened at the same time where my life just imploded. And finally I was like, I've got to start paying attention. Something's awry. And so during that, I would say it took me a good 5 years to even start thinking about looking inward. And then it's just been this gradual journey until this last 7 years where I'm like, no, I'm owning who I am. I like who I am. And even within the last 7 years, I've grown immensely, because now I'm taking the steps in my life, like leaving corporate, like really owning my health, like, you know, finally talking about my story. You know, I was so scared for so long, and kept in the clutches of the cult because I was scared something would happen to my sister, who's still there, if I went public, if I talked about it, right? And so I've only started talking public about it in the last 2 years. So like there's so many like kind of points where the healing just keeps on and getting deeper, and really I'm investing in myself, and I'm investing in my future, and I'm investing in my testimony, you know, every single day. But no, I've been out 20 years in December, and this has been a journey.
Yeah. Wow. And there's so much there. Before I ask the question that I wanted to ask, how significant too is it that you decided to take a holistic approach too, right? Like you just said, you named some things. You like, I started taking control of my health. I left corporate America. So I'm sure you reduced stress, right? And then to be able to release by speaking about it. Like, I love how you just decided, let me just bring this all in. Let me reel it all in and be able to heal from all different facets of my life.
Yeah.
So talk about that flicker, whatever that was, that said, you know what, in this 13-year span, I've had enough of not being happy or not being satisfied with who I am. Talk about what started that, what sparked it.
Yeah. So I would say around 5 years out, I'm a therapeutic massage therapist. And I was in a continuing education class, and they talked about somatics, and they talked about how we store trauma on a cellular level. And the bells and whistles and everything just started going off. And we started talking about this book that lays it all out. Body Keeps the Score. And I was like, I've got to get this book. This is me. This is me. And that was the moment where I realized everything's connected. Everything's connected. Mind, body, and spirit is all connected. So my physical body's falling apart. My emotional body is falling apart. My spiritual body is well, I didn't even have, like, that was like way out there somewhere. It was not of any concern to mine at that time. And I just realized if this is all connected, I can't just take a one silo approach. I can't just address my back pain. I can't just address my fibromyalgia. I can't just address my allergies. It's all connected. But I was, also I didn't know where to start. So I did what we do, right? I went to this specialist, and I went to that specialist, and I got this litany of diagnoses of, migraines and chronic pain and PTSD and complex PTSD and like all of the diagnosis. And then I'm like, and what do I do with this? Somebody wanted to give me a pill. Somebody wanted to give me a colonoscopy. Somebody wanted to give me shots. Somebody wanted to give me an injection. And it was just like, I made no progress. The pain was so deep in like intertwined in the fibers and the spindles of my very being that the pill wasn't going to help. It wasn't numbing anything other than just clouding over like a Band-Aid to the soul, right? And so I started realizing that I had to be the advocate for myself. I had to step away from the Western medicine and say, okay, how do I get inside? How do I get to the real pain? And when I started doing my own research, and Body Keeps the Score was a really good starting point for me, although it was crazy heavy at the time because this was all new territory for me. And that's a heavy book if you've ever read it.
I have not, but I'm going to write that one down.
But it was like a light bulb moment for me because it was like, okay, now I have somewhere to start. And that led me to modalities such as EMDR and brain spotting and neurofeedback and biofeedback and Reiki and all these different modalities, holistic modalities, right? That didn't include taking a pill, didn't include, shots or injections or those types of things. And that was truly when I started to tap into who I was and who I was created to be. And the cool thing is as I was starting to go inward and heal the inward trauma, my outward body started reflecting that healing. So my migraines decreased, my GI issues went away, my chronic fatigue went away, like all of these diagnoses that I had been given when I started paying attention to the real pain, the trauma, and really started healing from a place of going inward first, the outward began to manifest that as well. And that was like, whoa. And so then you just keep going because you see it, you feel it. I released 100 pounds in that first year of being on that healing journey. And that for me was like, whoa, okay, because I've changed nothing other than changed everything, right?
Right.
Because I had gone inward and I no longer hated the exterior because I understood it was a reflection of the pain inside. So if I could address the pain inside, I could address what I hated about the outside.
Yeah. Ooh, boy. I was just having a conversation with my son last night. We walked outside, right? We were just in the driveway, but my son has always been amazed by like the moon and the stars, and even now as he's older. So we always take the time to just look up, right? And I was saying to him last night, I'm like, think about the amazement of what God made and how we're so connected with the universe. And I said, and how intricate our bodies are made. I'm always in awe of how intricate our bodies are made. I'm like, we're more complex than any car, any machine that could ever be made by man. And I said to him, I'm like, if you think about all of this in amazement, all that God has done, we have the power, right, in our minds to heal ourselves. Because if you think about everything that he's given us, the resources are already here. It's already within our bodies, and it's already within the universe for us to have at our exposure to be able to heal. So I love, what you said. And a lot of times, I know that I was raised in a way where you just go to the doctor and you just listen to what they say. And, coming off of my own illness, really saying, you know what, I got to figure out how to do this and how to heal without taking all of the medication that they wanted to give me because I was having all these crazy side effects. But it's just what you choose to do on the inside is what you were saying. It's what you choose to do on the inside that now reflects outwardly. So I love that you were talking about that. I know you mentioned cults several times, but we didn't really tell it, right? We didn't really tell it, even though I showed the cover of the book, and I'll show it I have the book in my hand, everybody, but I'll show you a better picture of the cover itself because I want everybody to. It's such a great read. I was just telling Martha before we started the show, it is so hard to read and so hard to put down all at the same time. We're going to show her website as well. So you can go and you can grab a copy of the book from her website. And I'm not going to delay this. We're going to show it again later. But I want to put it up here now so that people can make sure that they get the book whenever they join the show, right? But I want to dive into this. So Martha mentioned that she was in a cult. And she didn't say this, but I'm going to say this and then I'm going to let her speak. But she was in a cult from birth. So it wasn't something that she chose herself. It was something that she was born into. But I want to dive into this amazing read about your life's journey. Talk about And I want to, there's so much here, and I have so many highlights here. The very first chapter, on the very first page, you talk about that the day is forever more memorialized in your mind as the night that everything changed, and you boldly and unintentionally, jumped faith first, not feet first, because you were talking about when you decided to leave. And you said it was the night that, this is everything that we just were talking about, that I physically, spiritually, and emotionally made an escape. So we're going to start backwards, I guess, right? Because that's kind of how the book starts off, but it just captures the attention. Talk about that moment where you said, I've had enough.
Yeah. So, and obviously that is the moment that I finally gained the courage to make a change in my life and to finally leave and escape. But I wish that I could say that I did it for myself, but I didn't. And I get into this in the book, but at that time I had no self-esteem, no self-awareness, no identity. So I couldn't do anything for myself, right? So the reason why I came to escape was because I had found out that my sister, who was on the outside, was pregnant with her first child. And my sister and I growing up were two peas in a pod. We loved each other and hated each other at the same time, but we did everything together. And we're only 18 months apart. And she was my heart. And so when I found out she was pregnant and she had nobody, she was married to an outsider. My parents were still in the cult. My siblings were, some of them were around, some of them were still in the cult. And so she had no one. And so I knew by the time that she told me this, I knew in that moment I would get home to be with her during her pregnancy. I didn't realize how fast God would work because from the time that I found out she was pregnant to the time that I escaped was only 10 days. Wow. And God rolled out the red carpet and made the provisions and created the way and the plan and the courage and all of those things within 10 days. Yeah. So when it's divine timing, nothing can stop it. God rolls the red carpet out for you, or the universe, or whatever you believe in. Yeah. Everything is made aligned in order for the purpose to be done in your life. And that's what happened for me. And so, yes, that night is memorialized in my every memory. I'll never forget that night. But I did it for my sister. I did it for my unborn niece because I didn't have the value to do it for myself, right? But I wouldn't find myself for many, many, many years, but I did it for them.
But there's so much value even in that. You think about how selfless that was, right? To say, you know what, I need to be there for her. And for whatever reason, right? And God put that on your heart because that was the moment that he knew that you were supposed to leave and go be there for her. But it just speaks volumes about, and we'll get into this a little bit later, it speaks volumes about the person that you still were and are today in wanting to do for others. You know what I mean? Think about how amazing that is. Like you left for someone else.
Well, that's intrinsically who God created me to be, right? And even underneath all of the trauma, underneath all of the pain, that's intrinsically who God created me to be. And so, yes, in that moment, I made a selfless decision. Very selfish if you think about it, because it ended up being what changed my life as well. But I did it for them. I wanted to be there for my sister. I wanted to be there for my niece. And that gave me the power, the courage, the resilience to be able to say, come hell or high water, I'm going to be there for them. I'm going to end this. I don't want this anymore. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get out of it.
Ooh. So beautiful. So beautiful. Wow. It's and it talks about the 10 days. I had that highlighted too, because that amazed me that it just happened within that time frame. We're going to take a quick commercial break here because I want to stop before we get too far into the book, because this is so good. I don't want people to miss this. at all. But I want people to think about, and you hear this, right, from people who have stories, and everybody does, but when you take that step towards helping somebody else, your life changes as well. Right. So I want to think about that as we take the commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to dive more into your journey. Here we go, everybody. Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are here with Martha Kartaoui. Did I say that? Kartaoui. Oh, come on. I'm going to get this right. I'm going to get this right, my friend. I'm definitely going to get it right. Martha Kartaoui, everyone. Beautiful soul that she is. We are here, and we are talking about her amazing life journey. I wanted to go back into the book again in the beginning as well. You talk about Cult Man, the leader of the cult, and you describe him as like he's godlike because we were taught that he was our intercessor. And I was thinking, of all my years of like just going to church and connected with God, we don't need an intercessor, right? We have that special relationship with God all on our own, but just to think about a person who puts themselves in the middle of that, and there's nothing wrong with people teaching and all of that and communing, right? But it's just the way you described it. And you said, we confided all things in him, and then he would take them to God for us. Our relationship was with him, not with God. Talk about what that felt like for you.
Yeah, so you have to remember that I knew nothing else. I was born into it. So I didn't know what regular people did. I didn't know what regular churches felt like, right? Like this was all I knew.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you don't know until you find out you don't know it, right? Yeah. Now looking back and being free for the last 20 years or almost 20 years, of course I'm like, what were we thinking, right? But I didn't have that reference. I didn't have that perspective because it was all I knew. My parents had lives before the cult, and yet they still allowed it to happen as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show the amount of control and manipulation and brainwashing that he had the ability to do in order to create that status, right? And so, yeah, it just goes to show how deeply he was intertwined in all of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talked about too, like before mentioning that you knew you were different. You just didn't really know how. So when I think about, going further in your story, when you got to the point where you started to rebel, I think that was where you started to recognize I am different. Right. And I don't know if I want to be here or not. I don't know if this place is right for me. Though when as you mentioned, when you're born into it, it's what you know, right? Talk about maybe the if you had this, right, a struggle of kind of the back and forth, like, because in one part you described, and we're going to get into that part of your story too, but in one part you described when you were rebelling, feeling like you needed to be cleansed. Right? Talk about that push and pull.
Yeah, there was an ongoing dichotomy of clashing worlds,
Yeah.
because nobody from the inside the cult knew about my outside of the cult world, and nobody on the outside of the cult knew about my inside of the cult world. And so my worlds were constantly clashing, right? When I became a teenager, I wanted to fit in. I went to public school. I wanted to fit in with my friends. I didn't want to look like the girl wearing long skirts and her hair in a bun and, you know, blouses. Like, I wanted to fit in with my friends. I wanted to wear jeans and shorts and t-shirts, and, you know, I wanted to cut my hair, and I wanted to, you know, I wanted to wear my hair down. You know, because we couldn't wear makeup, we couldn't wear jewelry, we couldn't wear, you know, just shirts or blouses and skirts. Like, I was just a sore thumb everywhere I went. And so when I started rebelling, it was more so I just wanted to fit into at least some part of my world, right? Because when I was a teenager, then I lived in North Carolina, but we were still part of the cult. So we still made, you know, 5 trips or 6 trips a year up to the cult. And then when I would get there, I didn't fit in there because I felt like I was wearing a badge of all of the rebelling that I did, you know, before I came back, right? So I was always stuck between these two clashing worlds of I'm this here and I'm this here, and nobody knows about my two worlds, and my worlds can't intersect. I can't tell them about this world, and I can't tell them about this world. And that's where the lying came from. I constantly had to lie in order to fit in both of my worlds.
Yeah. Wow. And did that torment you in a way? Like, just
it just became who I was.
Yeah.
It just became who I was. It wasn't until I moved back to the compound at 18 that it really came crashing down, right? Because then the weight of my sin, right? And all of that kind of began piling on top of me, because now he was telling me that I had to fast, and I had to pray, and I had to ask for redemption, and I had to ask for forgiveness, and all of the things. And so all of those years, you know, the 6 years of my teenage years that I was in North Carolina, all of that sin, right? For normal people, it's just normal. But for me, it was sin, was piling on top of me, and that I had to rectify for those things, right? And I had to ask for forgiveness. And I had, you know, like that whole fasting and cleansing came from that, right? Like I felt the burden of my sins. I felt the burden of my wrongdoings that didn't fit into the cult life, right? And I had to feel all of that.
Yeah. And just think about that part too, like the psychological, you know, manipulation that happens, because you and your family were, you know, miles away from where the compound was, but still, like, it was almost like you were still there, right? Just the way, have you ever asked your parents, like, why didn't they, like, make an escape, I guess, when you moved away?
I've never asked them that specifically, but for me, and this is what my parents would tell you too, is that it's all in divine timing.
Yeah.
They hadn't seen what they needed to see in order to make a break, right? And things had changed so incrementally small, you know, like we use the reference all the time about putting a lobster in a pot of cold water and then turning up the heat gradually, and they don't know they're being boiled to death, right? And that was the feeling of the experience within the cult, is that things happen so measured and so incrementally, and so, you know, like that is like, oh, that changed, oh, that, right? And so you can just digest it easier than just trying to swallow it all whole. And so my parents had to go through their own journey in order for them to see that this was no longer what they thought it was, and that, you know, also they really thought that they were sacrificing for the good of their family. They really thought that he was what he said he was, and that this was salvation. This was our direct link to heaven, to God, to, you know, a better life. And so for them, you know, things were uncomfortable, of course, but they never questioned it, because in the Bible, they were uncomfortable a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's lots of stories about people being uncomfortable and having to, you know, power through and having to wait on God and all of those things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't time.
Yeah. And I know we spoke earlier about this just in thinking about your parents and how hard, you know, it had to be for them, right? Because they thought that they were connected to something greater. And, you know, for anyone who has faith in something, right, you can identify with that. Like you want to be better, right? You want to live a better life, understanding that challenges will come, right? So you take, sorry, there's like a little gnat in here, everyone, but understanding that you'll take the challenges as they come, right? And thinking, oh my goodness, well, if Jesus endured, right, why can't I? Right. So I so understand that and applaud them too for being able to move on once they got a revelation. I'll put it that way, right? I want to talk about some things, and then we're going to shift gears a little bit. But I wanted to just talk about just for things for people to be aware of, right? Because listen, this can happen to anybody, born into or someone who decides, like your parents, that they want something greater, right? So I want people to kind of be able to recognize some behaviors that, you know, maybe could raise red flags for them to look out for, because there's so much in this book where Cult Man, right, was psychologically playing on everyone who was a part of this cult. You talked about things like going to meetings and having to sit there for hours without being able to move and go to the bathroom and sitting on your knees. And you think about what that plays on people. And then even having to walk, you know, a certain distance to get to the bathroom and wait online. And I mean, there's just so much here. What would you want to tell people to kind of look out for when it comes to, you know, being able to connect to something greater, but things to look out for that are not necessarily good for any individual?
Right. My journey, right, is a very personal one, right? And I have found my faith again, obviously. And my faith is very personal. And so when I talk about what to look out for when there's a cult or a cult leader or any of those things, I talk about isolation. If they want to isolate you from other people, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whether that's your spouse, that's not good. If they are controlling the way that you eat, the way that you sleep, the way that you go to the bathroom, any of the things that they're trying to control, that's not good. If they are trying to tell you that they are something that you doesn't feel good to you, right? Telling you that they're God, or telling you that they're an intercessor, or telling you that they're the son of, or that you're a prophet, or any of those things, and it doesn't resonate, it doesn't feel good, trust your gut, right? And you know, the last thing would be is that trust that you know what you need, right? And the problem is so often we get caught in this thing of wanting something that's bigger than us, wanting something that's better than us, and going to, you know, such lengths in order to get that, find that, feel that, right? But really, when we are at peace with who we are, these types of things can't happen to us, right? And also, I really want to emphasize that it's not just a cult that these things can happen in. These things happen in marriages. These things happen in corporations. These things happen in support groups. These things happen in, you know, these things can happen anytime that you put a person in a place of power and they abuse it.
Yeah. Such a good point. And now I want to transition because of that point that you just made. Talk about now how you start to make a transformation. And I know you talked earlier about going inside, but when you think about, you know, if someone is listening here and they're, you know, thinking about coming to you to say, I need to change my life because I'm in this position where somebody has me bound, right? Something or someone has me bound. where would you tell them to start?
For me, my first like real epiphany after I started the healing journey and started going inside and all of those things is I had to reconcile that I was not defined by the things that I had experienced. I was not defined by the cult. I was not defined by the sexual trauma that I had experienced, or the emotional, or the spiritual, or the verbal, right? I wasn't defined by those things. And so those things no longer could hold me captive in their grip. I set my own self free. And when I set my own self free from that, that was what led to me being able to forgive myself, for me to be able to forgive my parents, for me to be able to forgive Cult Man, right? Because you don't forgive someone because they deserve forgiveness. You forgive someone because you need peace.
Yes.
You forgive someone because you need to let yourself off the hook. You need to allow yourself to be changed, and you need to allow yourself to be free of that burden, of that pain, of that trauma, of dragging that brick or that rock along behind you, of unforgiveness, of anger, of hurt, of pain, of all of those things. I had to cut those chains, break those chains, and walk in that forgiveness. But I had to start with understanding I wasn't defined by those things that had happened to me. I was starting over with a clean slate. Who does God say I am? Who does Martha say she is when she looks in the mirror? Right?
Yeah.
And when you realize that, and when you realize the power in that, of understanding that you're not defined by the past, and I'm not defined by the future, because I don't know what the future holds. I know that my future looks bright. I'm not defined by that either, right?
Yeah.
I'm defined by this moment. This is the only moment that defines me. This moment. Oh, we just missed it. Now it's this one. Now it's this, like this is the moments are what define me now.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing with that defines me now. But the past has no place, right? I obviously, it always is part of my story and part of my testimony, but it doesn't define me. And I have forgiven, I have moved through, I have healed through, I have elevated above. And now it no longer has its grip on me, mind, body, or spirit.
Yes. Amen. Oh boy, I gotta you said set yourself free. I love that. You get to redefine yourself, people. I have this little sticky right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's hard to see. But this sticky says, die to yourself today. And I just look at that every day. So it's here, it's visible in front of me. Because, for everything that you said, you get to redefine yourself. And I loved how you talked about, those bricks or those chains or those rocks that you're carrying. You don't need them. They're not really yours anymore, right? Like, I love that. But I love that statement, set yourself free, because we really do have the power to do that. So talk about a little bit more about the healing journey and some of the modalities that you mentioned earlier that you started to use that have helped you.
Right. So the journey all happened in stages, right? So after I had this somatic class and realized that everything was connected and I had to go in first, some of the things that really helped me go inward were biofeedback, neurofeedback, EMDR. And then once
I'm going to stop you for 1 second there. I'm just going to say, explain them a little bit for people who don't know what they are.
So EMDR is eye movement therapy. So it's basically resensitization therapy. And what it does is they hook you up to these electrodes, and then they give you prompts, and it's basically rewiring your nervous system, your brain. It's helping to rewire and help you to react to certain traumas in a different way, in a way that is more productive, right? Because when you've been through the types of trauma that I have, or any kind of trauma, right, you are constantly in a state of fight or flight. So my nervous system was completely out of whack. My nervous system was constantly in a state of fight or flight. I didn't know how to not be in a state of fight or flight, because literally for 25 years I ran. And then when I got out, I kept running because I knew I didn't know how to do anything else. So I ran from myself. I ran from my pain. I ran from my past. I ran from my trauma. I just kept running because it was the only thing I knew how to do. And everything's energy, and we create, even if we don't want to create, we continue to create the same thing. So these therapies help you to break that cycle, to recreate something else that's more productive, right? To recreate the neural pathways that allow for healing, allow for you to go inward. So yes, we had to chip away with some of these therapies at the trauma, but it was more of how I viewed myself in the trauma that had to change. I had to separate myself from the trauma while also being able to say, yes, those are part of me, and I'm emotionally attached to those, but I can detach using some of these modalities, right? Same thing with EMDR. It's just using your eye movements to connect the neural pathways to allow for a deeper healing. And without getting too sciencey on you, but so there was lots of years of that, of being able to just tap back in and be able to sit with my trauma without having an explosion, without having a nervous breakdown or an emotional unraveling, right? Because that's what happened to me when I first went to my first talk therapist, when I finally got the courage to do that. And then 4 visits in, she tells me she's never worked with somebody from a cult and doesn't know what to do with me, and basically told me she was sorry and good luck. Like that was so crushing to my very soul, because I was like, see, I'm so broken. I tried to tell you I'm so broken, even for a professional. So I had to rewire all of that, right? I had to go inward and say, it's not me. This is part of me, but I want to let this go. And so these were all tools of how I learned to let these things go. And then there was things like craniosacral therapy, which really helps you to balance your nervous system in a very gentle way, where the therapist touches your body in certain different ways and asks you certain questions and just holds space for you and holds your body in certain safe and ways to help balance the cerebral fluid in your spinal column. Like it's those gentle therapies that really helped me to be able to work through the deep pain that I had felt for years. But also, as I healed the inner pain, the outer pain started to be relieved as well. And then, there was things like I signed up for a triathlon early on as I first started into this journey, because I needed somewhere to put this energy, because I was learning now that I couldn't stay in fight or flight. I had to calm my nervous system, but my nervous system was like, what are you trying to do? No. And so I needed somewhere productive to put that energy. So I signed up for a triathlon because I needed somewhere to put healthy energy. So I was swimming, I was biking, I was running like for months. But that also, I found a new peace in that, right? Because when I was concentrating on training, I wasn't thinking about my trauma. I wasn't stuck in that place, right? And so I was like, oh, this feels good. And then you get the adrenaline rushes, and in a healthy way, not just in your nervous system is freaking out type of way, right? And so you're like, oh, this feels good, and this is healthy. Okay, cool. And then I saw my body changing because I was releasing weight, and so it was all these things that I was doing kind of simultaneously to continue to just take steps forward. And continuing to go back, right? Like you always had to go back in first in order to come out. And I was continuing to peel the layers to free myself.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was peeling the layers to free myself. I always talk about an onion or an artichoke, where you have to literally peel the layers in order to get into the heart,
Yeah.
to who you truly are and who do you really identify as.
Yeah. And so that brings up something to for people that are listening to, like, be patient with it, right? And give yourself some grace and just continue to keep peeling, as Martha said, right? Because it's not a process that happens overnight. You heard her say it's gradual. She took years and to continue to holistically heal, right? And I'm sure you continue to use some modalities, right? Because
Absolutely. This
life,
is a lifelong thing, because
yeah,
there's never an end point where you're like, I am healed.
yeah,
No, that doesn't exist. And life continues to happen, right?
yes,
But
yes,
now I have a toolbox full of tools, that I can rely on. Like, I
yeah,
went through a divorce 4 years ago. I needed tools. I
yeah,
went through a miscarriage 2 years ago. I needed tools. I
yeah,
went through a breakup 2 years ago. Right. So all these things that have continued to happen in your life, even though, right, you're working on yourself consistently for a decade, all those things,
yeah.
life still is going to happen. But now I have the tools to cope, so that I don't put them in a rock bag behind me and have to drag them around.
Yeah, it just never stops. I mean, I can remember, having breast cancer and changing my lifestyle and noting that I have to continue this because I don't want, something to happen again. I don't want cancer. I don't want any illness, right? Because as I started learning more about the body and what things do to it, it's like I have to continue the process. So for everyone out there that's listening, right? Just start to peel, like she said, gradually, and just continue. It becomes a part of your lifestyle. Healing is something that you should consider doing on a regular basis, right? To continue to deal with whatever life is throwing at you, because it will, right?
Right.
It just will. I want to show your book cover again and your website so people can go and get the book. This book is, what a read. I'm telling you. Like I said earlier today, it's hard to read and hard to put down. You just want to know more and you want to go deeper. And I had this sense of I wanted to protect you, like I just wanted to reach out and like pull you out, as I'm reading the book. But here's the cover of the book, everyone. And let me give you the website as well. You can go onto the website at letyourgloryshine.com and get your copy of the book. You will not be disappointed. It's an amazing read, and it's just a special story to read. And I said this to Martha when she came in in backstage, but God bless her, for everything that she's went through before this light that she is right now, and purpose to really help people. So we have like just a couple of minutes, and I want you to just talk about, the places where people can reach you for people who are looking for assistance in some way.
Yeah. So you can find me on social media. You can find me at my website. And what I'm doing with this now is just bringing light to everything that I get to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm mentoring, I'm coaching, I'm speaking. I hold retreats and facilitate retreats for trauma. And these are all just, I feel so lucky that I get to do this, and it doesn't feel like a job, as you and I talked about the first time we got on here. Like, this doesn't feel, I feel so grateful that I get to do these things, and I get to help others, and teach tools that I learned that help me through this healing process. And now I get to give back, and I get to help other people to do that. It feels so purposeful that I get to do this now. And I'm 45 years old, and this next half of my life is going to be the best half of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I get to be in His glory, and I get to give away everything that I have learned and that I've struggled through in order to continue to create my testimony.
Yeah.
So I feel very humbled and very grateful that this is my life.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. This was so great. You'll have to come back. Anytime you're doing a retreat or anything, just let me know so we can put it out there, because I think this is special, and people need healing. from so many different things that happen in life. So everyone out there, I'm going to put the website up again because I just want you to connect with Martha and go get her book. Please go get her book. Read this book. I'm telling you, you will not want to put it down. Read her book. Get her book. We love you, Martha. I thank you so much for being here, for being so transparent and so helpful. Because this was amazing on helping people heal. And connect with her, everyone out there. You saw, I'm going to put her links on our Facebook page, so you can just click on her links right from the Facebook page. All right, we love you. I will see everyone out there next week. We will be here again at 7 p.m. and we have got a special guest coming on, also talking about a healing retreat. We're doing a lot of healing this year, but she's doing a healing retreat in Machu Picchu. So stay tuned. Make sure that you join us next week at 7 p.m. Take care, everyone.